And we should also note an interesting thing. So notice that the marginal productivity of labor, right, it goes from nothing, so negative nothing or negative infinity or whatever you want to call this dash, goes from 10 to 11, which is an increase, right? So adding this second worker actually increased the marginal productivity of labor, right? Which is odd because we said that all of these workers are exactly the same in every way. So how can adding one worker add more than the first worker? If they're all the same, shouldn't they be adding, let's say 10? So shouldn't this be 10, 20, 30, 40? Why is that not the case? The answer lies in understanding um, returns to scale, essentially. And so here, what we're saying is, well, one person doing the whole thing himself or herself, right, is productive, but not as productive as he or she possibly could be, right? And if I add a second worker, then this first worker can actually focus on other things as well, and this second worker can focus on specific things. So let's say we're talking about McDonald's, right? If I have 0 workers behind the counter, I'm obviously going to make 0 hamburgers and 0 French fries, and as a result, I'm going to sell 0 hamburgers and 0 French fries. Okay, no mystery there. I add a first worker. Well, now this worker is working the register, they're dropping the fries in the oil, they're flipping the burgers, they're making all the stuff, right? They're doing everything. They're productive, that's true. But if they could focus on one specific thing instead of having to do everything, they might be more productive. And so hiring the second worker allows one person to work the register and, let's say, the soda fountain, and the other worker to focus solely on the French fries and the hamburgers, right? And as a result of the division of this labor, each one can be more productive than they were before. But if I add a third worker, well, it starts to decline, right? Maybe adding the third worker doesn't quite add as much to the productivity. If you're having a hard time with like the third worker going from the first to the second adding productivity and the second to the third decreasing, adding significantly less productivity, decreasing the marginal productivity. Think about this. What if I had 99 workers behind the register at McDonald's and I added 100th, right? Clearly, that's not going to be very helpful, right? All of a sudden, this crowded back area is even more crowded, and people might be bumping into each other and doing all kinds of terrible things, okay? So we can easily imagine people specializing at McDonald's or any other place, and the marginal productivity, increasing, right? The marginal productivity of labor increasing up to a point, and then start to sort of decrease, right? And so the point here is that eventually, right, and it could happen very rapidly, it could happen immediately, or it could take a little while. Eventually, the marginal productivity of labor starts to decrease. Okay, so we assume for the sake of simplicity that marginal productivity of labor is decreasing, right? It's decreasing eventually. Okay, so economists would largely, we would start our analysis, here, right? We would start here and say like, okay, marginal productivity of labor is decreasing. Boom. Okay, so we assume that this is decreasing at all times. Okay, or well, yes, we just assume marginal productivity is decreasing. It might increase for 0, 1, 2, 3 people, but then after a certain number, it starts to decrease. And I'll spare you doing the same thing over here because it's the exact same thing, right? We also assume that marginal productivity of capital is also decreasing, which just means that as I add more and more machines, each additional machine is not as productive as the one before. So each additional unit of capital is less productive than the one before it. Okay, I should note that the marginal productivity is always positive, right? Well, at least in these cases, right? It's positive. So each machine is positively productive. We will produce more with the machine than without the machine. That's true. The question is how much more? Okay, and what this is saying is that each additional machine adds less to the total output than the one before it. Okay, so we're in like this realm here. Okay, so each additional machine, the marginal machine, adds less than the one before it.